Hello everyone, welcome back to Supposedly Fun. I am Greg. I am here today to do a tag video. This is the All the Feels tag. The original was done by Hardcover Hearts. I will link her video down below. I was tagged by Sean the Bookmaniac. I will also put his video down below. This is actually a pretty deep tag. The questions are kind of profound and require a little bit of thinking, which I enjoyed. So thank you to Hardcover Hearts for that. Sean actually tagged me about a month ago, and it just took me that long to kind of think of some of the answers that I wanted to give. So let's get started. The first prompt is, what is your instinctive physical expression of delight with a book? I don't think I have one. I'm pretty sure my face is generally blank. I've been paying attention a little bit since I first read this prompt, and I don't think I really react or show reaction to a book. I might laugh, but otherwise, I just kind of maintain my face as it is. And people tend to think I'm angry about things because I have these two creases between my eyebrows. I'm not angry, it's just my face. So there is one thing, though, that I do, which shows my delight with the book. It's not a facial expression. I have never admitted that I do this to anyone. So here we go. When I really like a book, like I'm about to add it to my favorites list on Goodreads, when I really, really like a book, I give it a little kiss when I finish it. Just a quick little thing. And, I don't know why. I don't know when I started doing this, but it's just like, it's a bit of a tradition now. And like I said, nobody knows. Even if I finish a book in a room with my husband, I will wait until I'll leave the room and go to put the book on a shelf, and as I'm doing that, when I'm out of sight, I'll give it a quick kiss, put it on a shelf or on the table until I can write a review later. The most recent one was actually this morning when I finished The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, which is again funny because this is a used book, so who knows where Toni Morrison has been at this point. But I gave it a quick kiss. And again, I have no idea when it started. I don't even remember when it started. It's just something I've been doing for a while. And yeah, so there you go. Random little thing that I do. Prompt number 2, has there ever been a specific meal or food passage in a book that was memorable to you? Well, I do love when an author has a palpable love for food, but I don't think I have any specific passages that relate to it or any meals that jump out, and I've been thinking about this and I haven't come up with any. But I will say one thing that has really increased my appreciation of food, especially in books, has been my husband, because he was working as a pastry chef when we met. He spent most of his life working in the restaurant industry or as a chef. He sees cooking for someone as a form of expressing love. And that was something I didn't really know about or think about, and I thought was really interesting. So I'm going to point to a book that sharpened my understanding and appreciation for that, and that's Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. I think it really gets to that whole idea of, when you love food that much and it translates into your life and your career. It's no surprise that he went on to have a TV career talking about food, because the way he wrote about it had such passion, and I really loved that. So there's not one specific passage, but I will point you toward that particular book, which I think captured it for me. Prompt number 3. What was the first or most intense memory of seeing a scene or passage in a book clearly? Well, I had a very vivid imagination when I was a kid, and I don't know what happened to it when I grew up. So this goes back to when I was a really, really small kid, and my parents would be reading to me like The Three Little Kittens, and I would have this really clear picture of the thing happening. And one of the ones I remember the most was Berenstain Bears and the Spooky Old Tree. This one particularly got me. Really, I felt like I could just see everything that happened. If you're not familiar with this book, it is one of my favorites from my childhood. It's 3 little bears, one with a light, one with a stick, one with a rope. They all end up terrified by the end after they crawl into this spooky old tree. And just everything they encounter. There was one part in particular, right here, where they're walking up a staircase where there are crocodiles or alligators, I don't know how to tell the difference, underneath them. And it's just that idea of this rickety wooden staircase in a tree that looks like a cave. You only have a flashlight, and there are these like glowing eyes beneath you. And then snap. That definitely is one of them. Roald Dahl, for sure. As I was a little older, got to me, especially Charlie in the Great Glass Elevator, the aliens, the Vernicious Knids. I had this really strong mental image of them as a kid. my father read to us even after I was a small kid, until I was about, right up until my parents separated when I was 9. He would read to us, and I would get so into it when he would read to us, and he used to throw jokes into the book, and I would get so upset when he did that because it was like it broke my concentration and I couldn't see it anymore. But he was doing it for the benefit of my sisters because making those jokes helped them pay attention, I guess. And for me, it was like the opposite. So there you go. Prompt number 4. When was the last time you slammed a book shut or threw a book out of rage, disgust, or frustration? It was actually during the Alphabet Soup book tag from Sean the Book Maniac. The edition for A is for author. One of the prompts was about books that make you angry. I talked about 2 of them, which I own. Adam by Ariel Schrag, The Spy Who Loved Me by Ian Fleming, and I threw them both at the end of that. There are only 3 books that I have thrown across the room in frustration. The first one was actually Angels and Demons by Dan Brown, just because I thought the ending was ludicrous. Just ludicrous. And I was so frustrated that when something happened toward the end, I just threw it into the corner of the room and left it there for days so it could think about how stupid it was. It probably didn't deserve that level of anger, but there you go. I don't remember which one of these I read second. I think it was Adam. Hate this book. Its messages were repugnant, and I just found out that it's been adapted into a movie. Awful. I've actually decided that I am going to try to see if my used bookstore in town will take this, because I'm tired of looking at it on my shelf behind me when I do videos. And what's the point of having this book? Just so I can periodically show it to people out there in the YouTube world, and then throw it. And The Spy Who Loved Me is the most recent one, because it is a really, really, really appalling treatment of women. It's just terrible. So, whatever. Prompt number 5. Have you ever been startled by a passage in a book that was not a thriller, suspense, or horror book? Well, yes. If nonfiction counts, there were many things in the book Educated by Tara Westover that definitely startled me, made me feel queasy, made me feel a lot of suspense, because there were so many things with her family that were so dramatic. I really liked that book, by the way. If you want to poo-poo nonfiction, well, shame on you. It counts. I guess the last book that startled me or gave me that same feeling was Adele by Layla Slimani, which is, not strictly speaking, a thriller novel. So there. Prompt number 6. What was the last time you laughed with or at a book? I found parts of Augustin Burroughs' Dry and Miriam Toews' Women Talking to be very amusing, especially in this case, surprisingly funny, but they didn't make me laugh out loud. The last book that made me laugh out loud was actually The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne, I believe. I can't remember any book since this doing it. There are parts of this that are just really sharply funny, especially I love the characterization of the protagonist's adoptive mother. I think she is a hilarious character. Very Dickensian, very reminiscent of Roald Dahl. I really laughed at and enjoyed this book. It also made me cry. Prompt number 7. What book made you feel expansive? Well, I looked up the definition of expansive just to help myself clue into what this prompt is getting at. And I'm going to think about it in terms of my goal with reading, which is that reading that will connect me to parts of the world I don't really know much about, or that I haven't been to, which is a lot of the world, or teach me things that I don't know, or connect me with communities and other people that I am not myself a part of. So in terms of that, the most recent one would be a nonfiction book again, which is Transgender History by Susan Stryker. It just, and I talked about this at the time, I didn't really need the first part of this book, which is very much about definitions, but everything after that I thought really taught me a lot, helped me grow and think about things outside of my own perspective of the world and how I live my life as a cisgendered male, and that was really good. If you want to poo-poo nonfiction again, well, again, shame on you, but we can go to the novel A Fine Balance, which is from a part of the world I've never been to, features characters with backgrounds that don't connect to me and my own experience of the world, but also taught me something about history that I didn't know. This whole period in 1975, when Indira Gandhi had declared a state of emergency and did horrible things, I didn't know anything about it. So not only did it connect me to a part of the world that I am not familiar with, it definitely taught me something as well. And then there are 2 bonus prompts. I'm only going to do one of them. The first bonus is read us a passage that made you feel and tell us what you felt. The second one is what was a specific sense memory that a book evoked in you. Well, I have terrible senses. I wear glasses, not in my videos because I hate wearing them, so I don't even know where they are right now. I have bad eyesight. I have a really bad sense of smell because my sinuses are terrible, and because I have a bad sense of smell, my sense of taste isn't that great either. So maybe it's all of that, but I can't think of a single book that has actually like provoked a sense memory in me. So that's why I'm going to skip that one. I gave it a lot of time for me to think of something, and nothing came. But I will do the first one. Read us a passage that made you feel and tell us what you felt. Well, I didn't really know where to go with this because the first story in Annie Proulx's Close Range is The Half-Skinned Steer. Like a lot of her other stories, it is very much about mortality and memory and about fate. And in an Annie Proulx book, fate is frequently violent and sudden. And I think The Half-Skinned Steer is one of her best examples of that. I'm not going to read a particular passage out of it. Because the one passage that I would want to read to you is the last paragraph of the story, and that it would be unfair. So read the story and just remember that the last paragraph is the one that I would have read if I went with this. I also really thought of the first story in Jhumpa Lahiri's Pulitzer Prize-winning collection, Interpreter of Maladies. The first story, which is A Temporary Matter, is one of my favorite short stories. Basically, the premise is that in this neighborhood where Shobha and Shukumar, a husband and wife, live, they're doing work. So every evening from a set period of time, they have to cut the power. So they have to make sure they've eaten before, and then what happens, Shobha and Shukumar decide that they're going to use that time to tell each other something that they've never told them before. And it builds to this climax, and again, I don't want to give spoilers, just read the story. But I am going to read you the last paragraph of this one because it doesn't necessarily give anything away, but it does hammer in why I love it so much. So, the last paragraph. Shukumar stood up and stacked his plate on top of hers. He carried the plates to the sink, but instead of running the tap, he looked out the window. Outside, the evening was still warm, and the Bradfords were walking arm in arm. As he watched the couple, the room went dark, and he spun around. Shobha had turned the lights off. She came back to the table and sat down, and after a moment, Shukumar joined her. They wept together for the things they now knew. I love that story so much. If you haven't read it, please. The whole collection is really good, but that one in particular is so good. And then I talked about The Virgin Suicides and how its opening is probably my favorite opening for a novel ever. It's just so good. I periodically read it as if it's a short story. So I will read you a passage from this. I'm doing more than one here, since I'm not doing the other bonus prompt. So, really quickly, from the beginning of the novel, in the emergency room, Cecilia watched the attempt to save her life with an eerie detachment. Her yellow eyes didn't blink, nor did she flinch when they stuck a needle in her arm. Dr. Armanson stitched up her wrist wounds. Within 5 minutes of the transfusion, he declared her out of danger. Chucking her under her chin, he said, "What are you doing here, honey? You're not even old enough to know how bad life gets." And it was then Cecilia gave orally what was to be her only form of suicide note, and a useless one at that, because she was going to live. "Obviously, doctor," she said, "you've never been a 13-year-old girl." That is on page 7 of The Virgin Suicides. It acts to me almost like a thesis statement for the entire book, which is one of the reasons I think this opening of this novel is so strong. And that line, "Obviously, doctor, you've never been a 13-year-old girl," has stayed with me in the 15 or so years since I first read this book. It is so good. So anyway, that is the All the Feels book tag. This does not include Adam and The Spy Who Loved Me, who got a little bit thrown and are out of reach now. But yeah, I really enjoyed this tag. It was very thoughtful. So I encourage you to do it. Again, I'm not going to tag anybody, but if you're watching this and you feel moved, I encourage you to do it because this was a very thought-provoking tag. Made me think about a lot of things and how I read, and I really enjoyed that. So, do it. But anyway, as usual, thank you for your time watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I'll be back again. Until next time, happy reading.